Good morning and welcome to Mental Health Matters with me, Dr. Audrey Tang. My co-host is Judith Crozier, and this is the show where we take a deep dive into all things mental health and well-being. Today's show is on men's health. Now, I know you all sit there and you'll think, yeah, you're all women and your producer's a woman as well. And what do you know about men's health? Well, that's why we've got a very special guest joining us, who I will introduce after this. Morning, Jude.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm well, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, very well, thank you.
Now, this topic today, I want to talk about it because we need to talk about it. Incredibly important topic. But of course, it's one of those where we've only got our perspective.
Yeah, well, yes.
So, taking a female perspective on men's health, what are some of the things that maybe we want to understand more, or we think we've got a better understanding of, or we need to talk about?
That's a lot, isn't it? It's a lot, and it's such a big subject. And I think quite a lot of the time with men's health, it comes back to boys don't cry.
Yeah,
you know, men don't cry.
Yeah.
Yes. And I think a lot of men who I know were brought up not encouraged to express their physical or their mental kind of state. So, you know, maybe a lot of the time it goes back to that. But the good thing is that more people are talking about men's health now.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. What I seem to see a lot of is that a man who chooses to open up to somebody then suddenly finds himself, especially if it's female, and I'm sorry to say this, almost met with this deluge of, oh my goodness, over emotion and over trying to help and over trying to solve the problem. And that puts them off wanting to talk to us again.
Well, yes, because if it becomes not about them, then why would they want to open up?
Very true, yes. Are we making it about us because it's so unusual that this thing has happened? And point. And the other thing is that I think we complain about this with our partners trying to solve the problem when we are stuck, but I think we do the same. I think we're just as bad, shall we say, at saying, oh no, this is what you need to do, as opposed to asking, do you just need someone to listen?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's very difficult to say, just to sit and listen to somebody without offering advice.
Yeah.
And without saying, oh yeah, well, I had a similar experience and this is what it was. The inference being, this is what you should do.
Yeah,
same as me. So yeah, I think it's hard. And when I think about my male friends, have I ever sat and said, just talk to me? I don't know if I've ever done that. And maybe I need to do that more often. Can I just say though, I watched Maths. Oh my gosh, it's my guilty pleasure. Maths Australia.
Oh, so Married at First
Sight.
Oh.
And the season that has just finished in Australia, the whole season, the partner, the wife, tried to get him to open up that, and you could see how much that wasn't the right thing to do, not at that time anyway. So I guess it just made me remember that actually maybe that wasn't the right platform, so there's the right time and place to do it as well.
Yeah, and also, just to add on to that, which is a really good observation, I'm going to go and watch that now, is the idea that if you don't want to open up to that person, that's okay.
Yes.
So
yes,
it's about,
indeed.
again, putting the ego aside and
finding the right one.
Yeah, finding a solution.
Yes.
So we are delighted to have on the show Arthur Diejomaoh. He is British Psychological Society.
Wow.
He is an organisational psychologist. He is a fabulous speaker as well, and I've had the pleasure of listening to him at a men's health event. He is going to help us unpack this subject. Welcome back to Mental Health Matters. It's a real pleasure to have Arthur Diejomaoh on the show with us.
Thank you for having me.
I mean, thank you for being here. I know you're incredibly busy. Please tell us about the work that you do.
Well, it's quite simple, really. I tell a lie. I juggle chaos with a smile. I'm like a conductor in an orchestra, causing harmony in the workplace, making sure that, people and processes work smoothly to get a train from A when it leaves the depot to B when it arrives at its destination. That's in simple terms what I do.
Yeah, but you do that literally not just for an organisational network, which is massive. But within that organisation, you are having to manage so many people and look at their organisational well-being as well.
That's correct, yeah.
So, so obviously you would have supported men and women, I assume, in your work, supporting people in organisations. What would be your top tips for a healthy workplace?
For a healthy workplace, I think, we should have three things. Communication, main. Collaboration, i.e. the person giving and seeking help. And also, I would say compassion or empathy, should be there. We need to foster a culture of mutual respect, that make sure that these things happen.
Okay.
I mean, with regards to where you work, can I just check, is it quite male-dominated?
I would say it is at the moment, but it's slowly. Funny enough, female colleague was saying, I work in a male oriented. I'm saying I was trying to challenge it, but when we looked around, it is, yeah. So there are more men than women, but it's slowly changing.
So with that, do you notice key differences in how men and women seek support, and perhaps what's on offer for women as well as men at the moment?
Well, the funny thing is, you touched on it earlier. Men seek either direct advice or solutions, whereas women seek either empathetic understanding or seek understanding. So that's what I feel, in my opinion, is the main difference between the two. So it's offering solutions to meet both needs, rather than saying I'm going to provide this solution or that solution, just to meet the two.
How easy is that? Sorry, because I know I was just saying this morning, just observing, we're a female team actually, but this is not necessarily a female space.
No.
But I know that our solutions will come from a relatively female perspective. Now, with regards to being able to meet both sides, do you find that because help has normally been actually quite female in the past, you've struggled to bring in what's relevant to your male employees, of which there are more of them?
When you say bring in what's relevant, how do you mean?
I guess I mean the interventions that you use, the support that you offer, whether it's training, whether it's through apps or whatever it is that you...
or whatever, yeah. Well, the thing is, obviously there will be some that will be resistant. You can only guide them in the right direction. You can't force, it has to be at their own pace. But the thing is, you have to realise when a kick and a push is necessary, or when you have to step back. I mean, the other day I was about to do a one-to-one with one of my colleagues, and he said to me quite bluntly, now is not a good time. Now, I could have insisted on, according to my schedule, we've got to do this one-to-one, and you can tell me. But the thing is, what his issue were, they weren't work-related. It was his, work outside life that was causing the duress that he was having. But it was my understanding to, give him his space, and that when we did have the conversation, it was more meaningful than if I'd pushed at that time.
Absolutely. Oh, gosh, there's a lot to unpack here. Arthur is going to stay with us, and we'll be back right after this. Welcome back to Mental Health Matters. We have Arthur Diejomaoh with us, and we are talking about men's health. We've kind of been focusing on men's health in the workplace, but we want to broaden that really into men's mental health in general.
Yeah, absolutely. So talking about men's mental health, so there's a difference between dealing with mental health issues and protecting their own mental health within the workplace or otherwise.
Yeah.
So how would you approach that, and what would be your top tips and tools for dealing with those two separate situations?
Well, essentially, for both, it's encouraging the men to speak about their feelings and to provide the resources to support that. So for both, prevention is better than cure, but encouraging open conversations and making sure that we provide the resources to do this. So resources such as courses online, signposting to the relevant organizations, but also making sure the staff, are individually aware of their own responsibilities within this new regime, I would say. Yeah.
Interesting.
I mean, relating to that, because you do say new regime, it's almost like well-being turned up to the workplace. And now everyone has to do it. But of course, it's really important. And I've had the pleasure of listening to Arthur speak at a men's health event. And there he told us an experience of yours where you were helping someone who was really resistant to help. And my husband still uses that as an example of the help was there. The help was there and they took it. Can you tell me a little bit about, that story, but also how we do help someone who's resistant?
Well, I always say helping someone who's resistant is a bit like hugging a cactus. It's difficult, but I suppose patience, empathy, and persistence are the key. And allowing them to operate at their own pace. So in this case, this chap was perceived as a difficult worker. There were complaints coming in about him that he's aggressive. But all he needed was someone to understand what his position was, what his issue was, and guide him in the right directions. I'm pleased to say, at the time, I was able to point him to the company's EAP, which is Employment Assistance Program, where they offer a range of services. But he also took it upon himself to take an individual mental health course that could help him identify when he was being triggered, and the techniques to ease himself. And since then, he's been promoted twice, so he's moved up. He's still facing the battles, but he's coping well, I would say.
That's amazing.
Lovely, yeah.
It's nice to hear. So, I mean, talking about facing battles, some people then employ self-soothing actions. What would your advice be around that? What would a workplace need to look out for, and how can a workplace help?
It's difficult because I think self-soothing are individual traits that people pick up. But I'll say the most common thing that I've seen is an isolation. They tend to isolate themselves from either social activities or within themselves. So they come in and they're quiet, barely nodding to their colleagues, just getting on with their work. So that's what I would tend to look out for and say, are you okay? What's going on? It's okay not to be okay.
That is the key thing. That's really interesting because the minute you say self-soothing, and I jump straight to alcohol, drugs,
me too.
But actually you are right, because now I think about it, that's what my husband does.
And mine.
How funny!
Completely withdraws. And in his previous job, he used to sit in the corner and not speak to his colleagues and go home because it was easier, and he didn't have to face them.
And this is why we're grateful to have you on, because of course, just right now I've just realised that even in our own perceptions, we've misperceived
absolutely.
in itself. I mean,
completely.
Yeah, they take us the brooding man, but no, he's thinking, I just want to be by myself. But why do you just want to be by yourself?
Yes, why? Why do you need to be?
to sit there with that protective wall around you.
So,
That's right.
relating to that, what do you think some of those key narratives are that are going on in that person's head when they are therefore sitting on their own? Is it that I must solve it, I need to be the person, or do you, I mean, in your experience, has there been other things that person's really just going through?
Key to what you said earlier is, which we're all guilty of, including me, is I must be the main provider, I must be the big man, and trying to do everything themselves. But in essence, if you speak to your partner, or people around you, you realise that, especially in this era of cost of living where you cannot possibly be the main provider, it's a good thing to open up and share that burden rather than try to take it on yourself.
So again, this has been a real theme of a lot of our guests, is sharing.
Yes, absolutely.
Is speaking to someone, and yet it's so hard to speak to someone.
It is.
Why? Why is it so hard?
I don't know.
I guess this is the question we always ask ourselves. But you also are part of the Black Network, because you need to address discrimination. And how can you help organisations do that?
Well, as we all know, discrimination is a weed that needs to be uprooted. All organisations have various anti-discrimination policies. Talk about diversity, inclusion, and fairness. But the thing is actually living the policies. They're not just there; they have to be seen to be done, and people act them. I mean, the other day, I said the other day, a while back, especially during the COVID, two people were having a discussion, and it turned racial. They were being derogatory about the black people, but they weren't talking to this fellow. It's just that he overheard, but they were pulled up. One of them has now left the job, and as a result of that, we had to do discriminatory training where we had to visualize ourselves in the other person's role and what it would be. So, it's taking that impact, What would it be like for you? How would you feel if this was if you were on the other shoe, But also, it's not just about the racial element. There's also about the male, female. Again, recently, a colleague was unhappy with a female colleague about work, and was going on and on over the phone. Not to the female in question. So she was not aware of what was going on. But his conversation was taken as part of an investigation, and then they heard his comments, and he was pulled up. So that's going through the process. So it's quite simply, discrimination has no root.
Yes,
it has no place in any organisation, so it should be uprooted.
I love just listening to you speak. You use the phrase uprooting and pulling up. Yeah. That's it. I love that. I love that because we've had other guests on the show as well who've said it's not just about the obvious, when it's an obvious abusive situation, but it's actually about when you've heard something and that person isn't in the room, when you've recognised someone's behaviour. It's about calling it out and pulling it up at that point. Absolutely. As well. Yeah. So important. Well, we're going to keep Arthur, because he really is our sage for this particular topic. And we'll be back right after this.
Hello, I'm Gordana Mitic, your host for Skits and Quibbles show. Every Thursday, 8 o'clock in the evening, PST time. And join us on Fresh Takes at E360 TV. We look forward to entertaining you.
Welcome back to Mental Health Matters. We've got Arthur with us, who is taking us through a lot of the work he does around men's health, mental health in general, and getting organisations to really understand the importance of helping people and holding space for people. But doing all of that, especially when, although I know it's your trained background, it's not necessarily the top part of your job description. What do you do for your own well-being? Because you are containing people's anxieties every single minute of the day.
Well, one of the things I did mention in the talk, which I love to do, is sleep. That's my main activity. But also, it's having a growth mindset to continuously learn, and breathing and the pause. Those are the two things. Those four things are the main thing. Of course, listening to music, but the pause is something you can do at any point in time. You just take a break and pause. But I was watching TV just last night. And at the end, one of the main characters talked about this breathing technique, which I thought fascinating. Basically, it was a challenge to breathe in and out. You count your breath 10 times, but try not to think of anything else. So if you can breathe in and out up to 10 without thinking of anything else, fantastic. And the two characters that were attempting, not one of them could do it. So if we could try it here.
Yeah, let's give it a go. Oh no, this is going to be really awful. Okay.
So, one.
Already I'm paranoid. That's so funny. Already I'm thinking he's watching me.
Right, did we get to 10?
I take slow breaths. I got to about 6, but by 3 I was already like, he's watching, he's thinking, he's judging me.
That's the thing. So if we can practice doing that until we get to a stage where we can do the 10 breaths without thinking, without interrupting our thoughts, we're on a winner.
How did you do?
I just found myself breathing in really slowly and deeply and out again. So I didn't do 10, I did about 3. But I was counting in my head, so I was watching the numbers in my head. 1, 2, 3. So that's all I thought.
But that's
about.
okay, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the same I was doing,
yeah. I didn't have any other thoughts.
Not bad.
Yeah. Top of the class. Well done. I love me.
It's interesting that you
immediately.
Off,
And I think it is, I guess we're in an unnatural environment because we're in a studio, so everybody is watching.
I mean, that's true.
But and it's a great technique because actually it does allow us to stop and also reminds us how to breathe properly.
That's right, because they were having a debate. One had just retired. He was a police officer, so he retired, and the other was a journalist. And so he was saying, you can't stay without doing something. You must do something. I said, well, if you can breathe 10 times without interrupting your thought, you're on your way. And so that's when that challenge occurred.
And it's a great challenge, actually. I do challenge everyone to do this because we have to breathe anyway.
That's right.
We do have to breathe. And it's just interesting as well that both of those occupations, where they came from, are quite stressful occupations. It's good if they could do it. So that kind of leads on to my next question then, about men who might be feeling overwhelmed in the workplace. What would your advice be to stop that overwhelm and to try and stop them thinking that they have to be in control of everything and do everything themselves?
It's control, isn't it?
Well, the first thing is, I would say, even Superman had the Justice League behind him. You can't do everything yourself. So it's to encourage teamwork and cooperation or delegation.
Okay.
And ensure that there is support and it's okay not to do everything. Because if we think of it, there isn't anything that anyone does on themselves. Even Taylor Swift has a mighty team. Although she's the one in front of the mic, she has a big team around her that make her clock. The tennis players, the lawn tennis players, they have teams behind them. So everyone has a team, you know. Yes. So it's okay to ask for help, you know.
It's a really good way of thinking about it.
It's so true. Just even here, we can't function without every single team member.
No.
Yeah. I love that point about Superman. Brilliant. Yeah. Utterly brilliant. How can we better support the men in our lives, without getting overly emotional? How can we better support them?
It's basically, listening to them, understanding, showing empathy. I think that's about it. And showing them it's okay to ask for help, supporting them, allowing them to move at their pace. Just because they don't want to talk now doesn't mean they won't open up ever. It's it's gentle. What I said earlier about dealing with someone who's resistant, patience, empathy, persistence. Yeah, that.
Do you know what? It's so genuinely simple.
Yeah, it really is, isn't it?
And in my head, I'm really complicating it. There must be a thing, a tool, a technique. And you are so right. Just dial it back and be a good friend, isn't it, really?
That's it.
Providing a safe space. Really, yeah.
Oh, my goodness. Thank you. It's just brilliant. Where can we learn a little bit more about you? Maybe, book you for speaking events, talk to you about the BPS and so on. British Psychological Society, that is.
Well, quite simply, I'm an open book, although I don't have an ISBN. I'm not really on social media, but I'll say mainly LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn,
Yeah, brilliant. Fantastic. Thank you so much, and let's head over to Business Boost. In today's Business Boost, I've been very inspired by our guest Arthur and his exercise that he put us through about the breathing deeply, because I know I struggled with it. So I'm going to expand on that particular exercise. And if you struggle with just taking those deep breaths, that's fine. It's okay. You clearly saw I did. But what you can also do is use it as a bit of a learning experience whilst you practice getting up to those 10 deep breaths. When you recognise a thought that comes by, an intrusive thought, or you're thinking about making dinner or that email you have to send or that person who annoyed you, clock it. Our resident psychologist, Dr. Meg Arrell, calls it thought bubble catching. So catch the thought bubbles. And that way, at least you will understand, even if you're not going through all those 10 breaths without thinking, you can understand where the energy is going, where your mind is going. Because if you can work out what actually is taking all of your attention, you might recognise that that is something that you need to deal with. So whilst it's great practice to get up to those 10 breaths, if you struggle, use what you learn from reflecting on that exercise to help you and focus your energy a little bit better in future. Welcome back to Mental Health Matters, and it's that part of the show where we reflect on the words of wisdom and then, of course, let our guests play us out with their last piece of advice or tip or tool. What have you taken from today, Jude?
I think the biggest thing that I've kind of taken from what you said was it's the balance. So you need to, we're specifically talking about men, so you need to give men the space to feel safe, to talk about how they're feeling or talk about the issues, but also, and that might not be now, and it might not be, when you think it's the right time.
Yes.
But also you have to balance that with giving them a bit of a push. You're trained, you can see when you can do that and how to do it and get away with it. So it's maybe that balance.
Yeah, and it's the time. That's I took that as well. It's that they may not want to talk to you right now, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But it's about making it clear that there is the space and there is the signpost, and maybe they don't want to talk to you.
Yes.
Either, and that has to be okay because the point is to get the problem solved. And the other one is actually how simple you've made it when it comes to understanding. In a way, I think I personally overcomplicate things all the time. And to just, when you say break it down to women just need space, empathy, compassion. Just, well, yeah, of course.
Just, I suppose, just the same as anyone else.
Yes.
And it is simple when you put it like that. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Really is. Oh my goodness. Arthur, please give our viewers your final top tip.
So first of all, mental health matters, and what I will say is the balance is pretty important, but it's not something you find, it's something you have to create yourself. You know, you need to create that balance for yourself. We should encourage open conversations and a supportive environment. There are a tsunami of tools out there, but at the end of the day, you need to find out what works best for you.